You open your eyes in complete darkness, but you're not blind. In fact, you've never seen more clearly in your entire life. The darkness itself has texture, layers upon layers of it, each one vibrating at a different frequency. You can feel the room around you, not with your hands or your skin, but with something else, something that's always been there, dormant, waiting. Every molecule in the stale air of your HAB unit carries information. Every atom in the corroded metal walls tells a story. The synthetic fiber of your sleeping mat beneath you hums with a million microscopic movements, and you perceive each one. This is the gift you were born with, the curse the Imperium would kill you for possessing. Your name is Matthias Kain. You're 34 standard years old. You work third shift at Manufactorum Complex Theta-Seven on Mordian, a hive world where the sun never rises and the factories never sleep. For 27 years, since that moment when you were 7 and accidentally heard your mother's thoughts, so clearly you answered a question she'd never spoken aloud. You've hidden what you are. You've built walls in your mind, brick by careful brick, keeping the gift locked away behind layers of deliberate ignorance and practiced denial. Tonight, alone in your coffin-sized HAB unit while 12 million souls sleep in the towering darkness around you, you've decided those walls have stood long enough. The decision came slowly, like rust creeping across metal. Weeks of whispers you couldn't quite ignore. Months of pressure building behind your eyes, a headache that never fully faded, the sense of something straining against boundaries grown too small. You've spent nearly 3 decades pretending to be normal, moving through the world like everyone else, seeing only what your physical eyes could show you. But pretending requires energy, and you're tired. So tired. Tired of being less than what you could be. Tired of living half awake while something magnificent sleeps inside you. So tonight, you've made a choice. You sit up on your sleeping mat, heart hammering against your ribs. The physical sensation of fear adrenaline flooding your system, breath quickening, palms sweating, feels almost quaint compared to what's building in your consciousness. You taste copper and ozone on your tongue, though you've eaten nothing. The air feels thin, stretched taut like silk over something vast and hungry that exists in a direction you can't quite name. Just a little, you think. Just enough to see what I'm really capable of. You close your physical eyes and open the other ones. The sensation defies description in any language meant for human mouths. Imagine spending your entire life in a soundproofed room, then suddenly hearing music for the first time. But the music is consciousness itself, and it's playing in every direction simultaneously. The walls of your HAB unit become transparent, not to sight but to awareness. You feel the presence of Citizen 47 Theta. In the unit to your left, her dreams roiling with anxiety about tomorrow's production quota, her sleeping mind a knot of fear and exhaustion. To your right, Citizen 13 Kappa 441 isn't sleeping at all. He's awake, quietly weeping for reasons even he doesn't fully understand, his consciousness a bruised and purple thing. You reach further. The sensation is intoxicating. Like stretching muscles you never knew you had, like breathing deeply after years of shallow gasps. You feel the sleeping minds of everyone on your level, 300 HAB units, 300 points of dim light in the darkness of your awareness. Then the level above, the level below. Your perception expands like ripples in water, spreading outward, touching thousands. 10,000, 100,000. For the first time in your life, you feel truly alive, truly awake. Everything before this moment, every day of assembly line work, every night of fitful sleep, every careful conversation where you had to pretend not to know what people were really thinking, all of it was sleepwalking. This is what it means to be conscious. This is what you were always meant to be. But there's something else. At the edges of your expanding awareness, where your perception brushes against the furthest reaches of what you can sense, you notice something wrong. A whisper that doesn't quite sound human. Words in a language you don't know but somehow understand. The sensation of being watched, but from a direction that isn't up or down, left or right, forward or back. It's a direction that shouldn't exist, and yet you can feel eyes upon you from that impossible angle. Colors that don't exist begin bleeding into the edges of your perception. Not hallucinations. You're certain of that. These are real colors, true colors, ones that human eyes were never meant to process because they exist in spectrums beyond the physical. They're beautiful and terrible in equal measure, and looking at them too long makes your neurons misfire, makes thoughts slip sideways into shapes that don't quite fit inside a human skull. You try to pull back, to close what you've opened. The walls won't rebuild. Panic flutters in your chest like a trapped bird. You reach for the mental barriers you've maintained for 27 years, but they're not there anymore. Or rather, they are. You can sense the ruins of them, the scattered bricks of deliberate ignorance, but you can't reassemble them. It's like trying to unburn a piece of paper, like trying to put water back into a broken glass. The gift, once unleashed, has its own momentum now. It wants to expand. It needs to expand. And something has noticed. You feel it the way a swimmer might feel movement in deep water, the displacement of something massive passing beneath. Whatever exists in that impossible direction, whatever sees you from the place that isn't a place, it's turning its attention toward you, toward this tiny spark of light you've just ignited in the darkness. Your physical body begins to shake. Blood runs from your nose, hot and copper-tasting. Your eyes, still closed, begin to burn as if you've stared directly into a sun that exists only in your mind. But you can't stop. The expansion continues without your permission now. Your awareness keeps spreading, keeps reaching, touching more and more minds, feeling the vast sea of consciousness that surrounds you. 12 million people sleep in the hive around you. 12 million points of light, 12 million dreams and fears and desperations, and you can feel them all now. The sheer weight of it should crush you, but instead you feel lighter, as if you're dissolving into that ocean of awareness, losing the boundaries between yourself and everyone else. Where do you end and they begin? The question doesn't make sense anymore. And then you hear it, a voice that isn't a voice. A concept planted directly into your consciousness, bypassing language entirely. It speaks to you the way a parent might speak to a child, gentle and encouraging and infinitely patient. Yes, it says. Yes, that's it. Open wider. Let us see you properly. Let us help. Every instinct you possess screams at you to refuse, to shut down, to rebuild those walls no matter the cost. But the voice is so reasonable, so kind. And you're drowning in sensation, overwhelmed by the flood of consciousness pouring through you, and this voice. These voices, you realize, there are many of them speaking in harmony. They're offering exactly what you desperately need. Control, understanding, mastery. Just a little more, the voices whisper. Just open a little wider and we'll show you how to manage the flow. You don't have to drown. We can teach you to swim. Your last coherent thought before the boundaries dissolve completely is a simple one. I can't close the door. The door swings both ways, you realize, and something is already coming through. To understand what's happening to Matthias Kain in his HAB unit on Mordian, to truly comprehend the horror that's beginning to unfold, you need to understand the architecture of damnation itself. You need to understand what the warp is, what psychers are, and why an open mind is the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Imagine an ocean. Not the oceans of ancient Terra, though the metaphor draws from them. Imagine an ocean beneath reality itself, existing in dimensions that your three-dimensional mind can barely conceptualize. This ocean has no water. It has no physical substance at all. What fills it instead is emotion, thought, consciousness itself. Every feeling that every sentient being has ever experienced throughout all of history has left ripples in this ocean. Every thought leaves a wake. Every dream, every nightmare, every moment of rage or ecstasy or terror or joy, all of it flows into this ocean and nothing ever truly dissipates. This is the warp, the immaterium, the sea of souls. In our universe, you can comfort yourself with the knowledge that thoughts are private, that they exist only in the electrochemical reactions of your brain, that they die when you do. In the Warhammer 40,000 universe, that's not true. Your thoughts are real. They have substance. They echo in a dimension you can't see, and they persist long after you're gone. Humanity's evolution created souls bright enough to be visible in that ocean. Consciousness complex enough to create reflections in the warp. It made humans capable of incredible things, abstract thought, creativity, imagination, the ability to conceptualize futures that don't exist yet, and then bring them into being through will and effort. But it also made humanity vulnerable in ways that simpler organisms aren't. It made human souls into lighthouse beacons shining in the darkness of the immaterium, visible to things that hunger for the light. Most humans float on the surface of this ocean, completely unaware it exists. Their thoughts and feelings ripple the waters around them, but they never consciously touch those waters themselves. They're like people on a ship, sailing across vast depths without ever realizing what swims below. Psykers are different. Psykers are humanity's divers. They're the ones who can consciously interact with the ocean of the warp, who can reach into those depths and pull out impossible things, matter conjured from thought, futures read in the currents of possibility, minds touched across distances that should make communication impossible. They're mutations, evolutionary accidents that give individuals direct access to the fundamental forces of consciousness itself. But here's the horror that keeps Inquisitors awake at night, that justifies the Imperium's brutal response to unsanctioned Psykers. They're divers without training, without equipment, without any understanding of what swims in the dark waters below them. And those waters are not empty. The Imperium's response to Psykers is draconian, horrifying even, but understanding why requires understanding the alternative. The black ships travel endlessly through the galaxy, their hulls painted in vantablack that drinks light and offers no reflection. These ships carry Inquisitors, sanctioned Psykers, and specialized equipment designed for one purpose: finding unsanctioned Psykers and bringing them to Terra. Children mostly. The gift usually manifests young. The black ships tear them from their families, load them into holds designed more for cargo than passengers, and begin the long journey to humanity's throne world. Most of these children are terrified. Many are kept in suppression fields that hurt, a constant low-level agony that keeps their powers from manifesting during transport. Some die during the journey. The Imperium considers this an acceptable loss. Those who survive face evaluation. The strong, the stable, those whose gifts might be molded into weapons for the Emperor's use, they're sent to the Scholastica Psychana for training. Years, sometimes decades of brutal education. They learn to discipline their minds, to build walls, to use their gifts without being consumed by them. The very strongest, those rare individuals whose psychic might burns bright enough to serve at the highest levels, face the soul binding. Imagine having your consciousness dragged before the God Emperor of mankind, the most powerful Psyker who has ever existed. Imagine having your mind, your very soul, held up to that terrible psychic furnace and seared by its light. The ritual burns away the corruption that all Psykers carry, cauterizes their connection to the warp, leaves them scarred but shielded. Soul-bound Psykers have their eyes burned from their skulls by the experience. Many go mad, but those who survive emerge as sanctioned Psykers, registered and marked, allowed to use their gifts in service to the Imperium. Those whose gifts are too weak to be useful, or too unstable to be trusted. They're led to the Golden Throne itself, thousands every day. Their souls are consumed, burned as fuel to power the Astronomicon, the psychic lighthouse that makes faster-than-light travel possible throughout the Imperium. They die so others can navigate the warp. Their sacrifice allows humanity to maintain an interstellar civilization. It's brutal, cruel, indefensible by any standard we might apply in our universe. But the alternative is what's happening to Matthias Kain right now, multiplied by trillions. Because the warp is not empty, the ocean beneath reality is full of predators, entities, things that exist as concepts given hunger, as emotions twisted into predatory intelligence. They feed on psychic energy, on consciousness itself. And an untrained Psyker reaching into the warp is like a wound opening in reality's skin. The predators can smell the blood from across dimensions. These entities aren't evil in any way we'd recognize. They don't hate humanity. They simply hunger. A demonic entity views a human soul the way you might view a meal, not with malice but with appetite. They're predators made of emotion and thought, and humanity's bright souls are irresistible to them. The possession process isn't sudden. That's what makes it so insidious. It's gradual, patient. The entity doesn't announce itself as a demon of chaos. It presents itself as a teacher, a guide, a friendly voice offering help to someone drowning in sensation they can't control. It offers exactly what the Psyker desperately needs: control, understanding, power over the gift that's threatening to destroy them. And step by step, lesson by lesson, small concession by small concession, the entity infiltrates, not as an invader but as a welcomed guest. By the time the Psyker realizes what they've actually invited in, it's far too late. An open mind isn't just vulnerable to attack. It becomes a doorway, a bridge between reality and unreality. The Psyker becomes an anchor point, a weakness in the fabric of space-time itself. Through them, things that should never touch our universe can reach through and pull themselves into material existence. This is why the Imperium shoots unsanctioned Psykers on sight. This is why the Inquisition burns entire populations if even one rogue Psyker escapes detection. This is why the Black Ships never stop their grim harvest, why millions of children are torn from their families every year, why so many are sacrificed to feed the Astronomicon. Because one untrained Psyker, opening their mind too wide, can damn an entire world. Why do they do it? Why do rogue Psykers open wide when survival depends on staying closed? Ignorance, mostly. Matthias Kain lived his entire life not understanding what he was. He knew he was different, knew his mind could do things others couldn't, but he had no framework for understanding the danger. No one ever explained to him that his gift was a loaded weapon pointed at everyone around him. He felt the pressure building, felt the power straining against the walls he'd built, and he made what seemed like a reasonable choice: explore his own potential. He couldn't have known that exploring his potential was functionally identical to opening a door into hell. Others are pushed by desperation. A loved one dying, attackers closing in, pain beyond endurance. In a moment of crisis, they tear their minds open wide, reaching for power they don't understand because the alternative is watching someone they love die right now. They trade the future for the present, not realizing the future they're trading belongs to everyone around them too. Some Psykers fall to arrogance. They've read the warnings, heard the stories, but they believe they're special, different, stronger. They think the rules don't apply to them, that they can control what thousands of more powerful Psykers before them could not. Pride is the oldest corruption, and the warp knows exactly how to use it. And some, more than the Imperium wants to admit, are already corrupted before they even make the choice to open wide. The entities in the warp are patient. They can whisper to latent Psykers for years, decades even, slowly shaping their thoughts, their desires, their very sense of self. By the time the Psyker finally opens their mind wide, they're not making a free choice at all. They're following programming they don't even know exists, dancing to music only the chaos gods can hear. Right now, somewhere in the galaxy, a Psyker is making Matthias Kain's mistake. Has always been making this mistake. Will always make this mistake. The cycle is eternal because the factors that create rogue Psykers, human evolution, the nature of the warp, the Imperium's inability to catch every psychically active child, these aren't problems that can be solved. They can only be managed, and the management requires brutality that would horrify anyone from our universe. The Imperium isn't cruel because it's evil. It's cruel because the alternative is extinction. In Matthias Kain's HAB unit, the door is opening. The predators are coming. And 12 million people sleeping in the darkness around him have no idea that one of their own has just condemned them all. The architecture of damnation is complete. Now comes the fall. You try to scream, but you're not sure you have a mouth anymore. No, that's not quite right. You know you have a mouth. You can feel it on your face, feel the air moving across your lips as you gasp. But you're also aware of 47,000 other mouths, all breathing simultaneously, and for a terrifying moment you can't remember which one is yours. The boundaries between yourself and everyone else are dissolving like sugar in rain. You can feel everything. 3 Hab units down and 2 levels below, Citizen 88 Delta 223. You don't know her name, but you know everything else about her now, wakes from a nightmare. Her heart hammers. Her sheets are soaked with sweat. She's dreaming about her daughter, taken by the black ships 15 years ago. The grief is a knife that never dulls. You feel it as if it's your own grief, raw and bleeding and permanent. 2 levels up in a unit directly above yours, Citizens 265412 and 315413 are having sex. You experience their pleasure with crystal clarity, not as observation but as direct sensation. Every nerve firing, every endorphin release, every accelerating heartbeat. It's violating and intimate in equal measure, and you can't stop feeling it, can't close yourself off from their experience. In the walls between the units, rats are moving. Dozens of them, hundreds. You feel their tiny minds, so much simpler than human consciousness but no less vivid for that simplicity. Hunger, fear, the eternal search for food in a hive where everything edible is locked away or poisoned. You feel all of it, and it mixes with your own thoughts until you can't distinguish between human reasoning and animal instinct. The collective exhaustion of 12 million workers presses down on you like physical weight. They sleep in their coffin-sized rooms, in their stacked habitation towers, and their rest isn't restful. They dream of quotas and overseers and the constant fear of being found redundant. You're drowning in an ocean of fatigue, each wave carrying another person's weariness, and there's no shore in sight. Your physical body is failing. You can feel that, though it seems distant now, like something happening to someone else. Blood runs from your nose in steady streams, soaking into the fabric of your sleeping mat. Your eyes, still closed, feel like they're burning from the inside. Your fingernails are cracking, splitting vertically as if your body is trying to come apart at the seams. Your teeth grind against each other unconsciously, enamel scraping enamel. Muscles you can't consciously control lock in spasms. You try to close it, try to rebuild the walls that kept you safe for 27 years. It's like trying to put water back into a broken glass. The gift, no, the curse, you understand that now, has momentum. It expands without your permission, without your control. Your awareness spreads like ripples in a pond, touching more and more minds, feeling more and more lives, absorbing more and more of the vast sea of consciousness that surrounds you. Where does Matthias Kain end and everyone else begin? The question becomes meaningless. Identity starts dissolving, and that's when you begin to see the truth. You've always known that people lie. Everyone knows that. People present faces to the world that don't match their inner reality. They smile while hurting. They claim contentment while dying inside. You've spent your whole life reading these small deceptions in body language and tone, the way everyone does. But now you see behind all the masks. Overseer Tertius IX, who you've always thought of as kindly, the only member of the administratum who ever addressed you as something approaching human, you feel his mind now. The sadness he shows workers, the concern, the gentle reprimands instead of harsh punishments. It's all performance. Underneath, there's a sadism so profound it makes you want to vomit. He fantasizes constantly about the power he holds over you, about the suffering he could inflict if protocols allowed it. The restraint he shows isn't mercy. It's the frustration of a predator forced to cage its nature. Your Hab neighbor, Citizen 13 Kappa 441, the one you've occasionally shared rations with, who you thought might be something approaching a friend, his mind is a nest of envy so poisonous it's turned his thoughts black. Every kindness he's ever shown you came from a place of bitter calculation, trying to gain advantage over someone he simultaneously resented for having anything he didn't. He doesn't know why he feels this way. He hates himself for it, but he can't stop. 2 levels up, Citizen 12 Beta 791 is planning to murder his wife. He's been planning it for months. She doesn't know. She smiles at him every morning, asks about his shift, tries to maintain intimacy in a marriage that died years ago. He smiles back while mentally calculating how to make her death look like an industrial accident. He'll never do it. He's too afraid of discovery, but the fantasy keeps him warm at night. The revelations come faster now, cascading through your expanding awareness. The hive is full of hidden horrors, abuse behind closed doors, exploitation so normalized no one even recognizes it anymore, despair thick enough to taste, a miasma that hangs over everything like chemical smog. The normal world you've always known was a thin veneer stretched over bottomless misery. You've stumbled into the truth that the Imperium hides behind its endless propaganda. Most human lives in the 41st millennium are not worth living. They're endured, not enjoyed. Survival is not the same as life. And worse, you discover things about yourself. Memories you repressed come flooding back with perfect clarity. The time at age 12 when you sensed a coworker was injured in the manufactorum, trapped beneath machinery, dying slowly. You felt his pain. You knew where he was. You could have reported it immediately, but you were terrified that revealing your knowledge would expose what you are, so you waited hours until someone else found him, and by then he was dead. You killed him with your cowardice. The shadow desires you've always hidden, even from yourself, stand naked in the light of this forced self-awareness. The rage at the Imperium that you've spent decades suppressing because rage at the Imperium is heresy. The fantasies of escape that you know are impossible. The bitter envy of people born to easier lives. The parts of yourself you've always denied. They're all visible now, and you can't look away. You realize that ignorance was mercy. Some things humans aren't meant to know about themselves or others. The lies we tell ourselves and each other aren't deceptions, they're the foundations of sanity. Without them, without the blessing of partial blindness, consciousness becomes unendurable. And that's when the whispers return. They're not voices, not exactly. They're concepts planted directly into your consciousness, bypassing language entirely. If you tried to describe them in words, you'd fail because human language evolved to communicate physical reality and what's speaking to you exists beyond the physical. But you understand them perfectly. You see it now, don't you? The whispers say, the truth beneath the lies, the rot at the foundation. You've spent your whole life accepting their version of reality, but now you see what they really are, what they've made you into. The whispers feel helpful, sympathetic, like someone who genuinely understands your suffering and wants to alleviate it. You don't have to endure this alone, they continue. We can help. We can show you how to control the flow, how to filter out the pain, how to master this gift instead of being mastered by it. You're drowning because you don't know how to swim. Let us teach you. Part of you, the part that remembers the Imperium's warnings about chaos corruption, about entities in the warp that feed on the unwary, screams at you to refuse. But that part is small now, barely audible over the overwhelming sensation flooding through you. And the whispers are offering exactly what you desperately need: control over the chaos, understanding of the incomprehensible, power over forces trying to destroy you. The Imperium would kill you for what you are, the whispers remind you. They see Psykers as weapons to be used or threats to be eliminated, never as people. But you are a person. You deserve to live. You deserve to explore what you're capable of. We don't want to use you or kill you. We only want to help. They sound so reasonable, so kind. Finally, someone, something that understands. Just open a little more, the whispers encourage. Just enough to let us show you. We can't teach you if you keep us at arm's length. Trust us. Take our guidance, accept our help. The choice crystallizes before you. Drown alone in sensation you can't control, or accept help from voices that, despite every warning you've ever heard about the warp, seem genuinely concerned with your survival. You're overwhelmed, desperate. The pain is becoming unendurable. Your mind is fragmenting under the weight of millions of other consciousnesses pressing in on your sense of self. You choose help. Yes, you think toward the voices. Yes, teach me. Show me how to control this, please. The whispers sound pleased, satisfied, almost hungry. Good, they say. Very good. Now let us in. You lower your last defenses. You open yourself to their instruction. And something that's been waiting patiently at the threshold of your consciousness steps through the door you've just opened. You don't realize yet that you've made a terrible mistake. Outside your HAB unit, the first signs of something wrong are beginning to manifest. Electronics on your level start malfunctioning. Lights flicker in patterns that don't match the usual power fluctuations. Vox units emit static that almost sounds like voices if you listen carefully. Heating units cycle through their operations at random, creating pockets of inexplicable cold in some HAB units while others swelter. People sleeping near you begin having nightmares, all of them, simultaneously. They dream of drowning, of doors opening onto infinite darkness, of eyes watching from angles that shouldn't exist. Some wake screaming. Others thrash in their sleep, injuring themselves against the walls of their tiny rooms. Citizen 47 Theta 926, your neighbor, wakes to find her hands covered in blood. She's been scratching at her own skin in her sleep, drawing patterns she doesn't recognize and can't remember creating. The symbols hurt to look at. They seem to move when she's not looking directly at them. The rats in the walls are going mad. They're attacking each other, engaging in sudden fits of violence that leave the narrow spaces between HAB units littered with tiny corpses. The survivors feast on the dead, even though food dispensers are accessible. They prefer the carrion now. Something has changed in their simple minds, redirected their instincts toward behavior that serves no survival purpose, and shadows are moving wrong. In the dim emergency lighting that's all the hive provides during sleep shifts, shadows are supposed to stay put. But on your level, they drift, they stretch, they pool in corners that shouldn't be able to hold them. If you stared at one long enough, which no one has yet, though several have glanced and looked away uneasily, you'd see things moving inside them. Shapes that don't correspond to any physical object, silhouettes of impossible geometries. Someone, Citizen 22 Omega, a loyal Imperial citizen who takes their duty seriously, files a report with the local Arbeits precinct. Strange behavior in HAB Section Theta-Seven 9, unexplained phenomena, possible Psyker activity. The report enters the bureaucratic machinery of the Adeptus Arbeits. It's logged, cataloged, added to a queue. In a functioning section of the Imperium with proper resources and attention to protocol, this report would trigger immediate response. A team would be dispatched. The situation would be contained. But this is a hive world. There are 1,000 reports like this every day. Most turn out to be nothing. Hysteria, equipment failure, citizens looking for attention or trying to settle grudges by accusing neighbors of heresy. The Arbeits are understaffed, overworked, drowning in an endless sea of reports they can't possibly investigate with appropriate speed. The report sits in the queue. Hours will pass before anyone even reads it. More hours before a team is dispatched. You have maybe 8 hours before the authorities arrive. 8 hours before discovery. 8 hours before everything ends, one way or another. But you don't know any of this. Inside your HAB unit, you're learning your first lessons from the voices. And the voices are very, very good teachers. They show you how to breathe with the flow instead of against it. How to partition your awareness so you're not overwhelmed by every consciousness at once. How to filter the sensation flooding through you, choosing what to perceive and what to let pass by unfelt. It works. For the first time since you opened your mind wide, you're not drowning, you're floating, swimming even. The chaos becomes manageable. The pain recedes. You feel control returning, and it feels amazing. The voices praise you, encourage you. Tell you how quickly you're learning, how naturally gifted you are, how proud they are of your progress. You don't notice the small concessions they're asking for with each lesson. A memory here, offered up as payment for instruction. A moral boundary there, relaxed just slightly to make the next technique easier. Protections willingly lowered because, after all, why would you need protection from beings that are helping you? Step by step, lesson by lesson, you're being domesticated, prepared, seasoned for purposes you don't yet understand. The voices are patient. They have all the time in the world. And you're just grateful not to be drowning anymore. The first circle of damnation is complete. You've accepted the help. Now comes the price. The lessons continue through the long hours of the sleep shift, and you learn quickly. The voices. You've started thinking of them as teachers now, though some distant part of you recognizes how dangerous that mental categorization is. Show you techniques that should be impossible. They teach you to shape psychic energy with nothing but focused intention, to reach out and touch the world in ways that violate every law of physics you've ever understood. And the most seductive part, it works. Every lesson delivers exactly what it promises. Your first real demonstration of controlled power comes 3 hours after you accepted their help. You've been practicing a technique they call the minor mending, using psychic energy to accelerate natural healing processes. It seemed harmless enough when they suggested it. Your hands are covered in small cuts and abrasions from your work in the manufactorum, the kind of minor injuries that every worker accumulates and ignores, because medical attention is reserved for injuries that actually threaten productivity. Focus on the wound, the voices instruct. Feel the cells at the damaged site. They want to knit together, that's their nature. You're not creating anything new, just encouraging what the body already wants to do. Guide the energy there. Yes, like that, perfect. You feel the cuts on your palm closing. Not instantly, this isn't some medici miracle, but accelerated hours of healing compressed into minutes. The pain fades. New skin knits itself together, pink and tender but whole. You stare at your palm in wonder, turning it back and forth in the dim light of your HAB unit. You just violated the laws of nature and it was easy. Thank you, you whisper aloud, and immediately feel foolish. Are you really talking to voices in your head? You don't need to speak aloud, they respond, and there's something in their tone that might be amusement. We hear your thoughts perfectly well, and you're welcome. You're a natural at this, Matthias. We've taught many over the millennia, but few learn as quickly as you. The praise warms you. After a lifetime of being invisible, just another anonymous worker in the Imperium's vast machinery, being told you're gifted, that you're special feels better than you want to admit. Let's try something more complex, the voices suggest. There's a woman 3 units down from you. Citizen 88 Delta 223. You felt her grief earlier, yes. The daughter taken by the black ships, you remember. The knife-sharp pain of loss that never dulls. She's awake now, still crying. Reach out to her consciousness. Just gently, feel the shape of her emotional state. You do as instructed. Your awareness extends, touches the edge of her mind. She's curled on her sleeping mat, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. The grief is overwhelming, a black hole that's consumed everything else in her psyche. She's been living in this darkness for 15 years. You could help her, the voices whisper. Her pain serves no purpose. It's just suffering for suffering's sake. You could ease it, dull the sharpest edges. Give her a moment of peace. I don't know how, you think toward them. We'll show you. It's simple, really. Emotions are just patterns of thought, and thoughts are just energy organized in certain ways. All you have to do is reach in and adjust the pattern. Gently, like tuning an instrument. Here, follow our guidance. They walk you through it step by step. How to reach into another person's consciousness. How to find the neural pathways where grief has worn grooves so deep they've become permanent. How to gently redirect the energy flowing through those pathways, creating new roots around the old pain. It feels invasive, wrong, like reading someone's diary without permission, except infinitely more intimate. You're inside her mind, touching the most private parts of her inner life, and she has no idea you're there. But then you feel the shift. The grief doesn't disappear. That would be too drastic, too noticeable, but it softens. The knife dulls just slightly. Her crying slows, then stops. She takes a deep, shuddering breath. For the first time in hours, she feels something other than loss. Not happiness exactly, just not pain, respite. See, the voices say you just gave her a gift, a moment of peace in a life that has precious little of it. How does that feel? It feels incredible. You've just reached into another person's suffering and reduced it. You've made the universe in some tiny way less painful. How could that be wrong? It's not wrong, the voices assure you, responding to your unspoken thought. The Imperium would tell you it is. They'd say you violated her mind, that you had no right to touch her consciousness without permission. But look at the result. She's not suffering anymore. Isn't that what matters? Results, not arbitrary rules created by people who fear power they don't possess. You're not sure you agree completely, but you also can't deny the logic. The woman is better off now than she was 5 minutes ago. Intentions and methods matter less than outcomes, don't they? Of course they do, the voices confirm. Now shall we continue your education? There's so much more we can teach you. The lessons accelerate. Each one builds on the previous, expanding your capabilities in careful increments. You learn to sense emotions at a distance, to subtly influence others' moods, to perceive probability threads stretching into the near future, to move small objects with focused intention, to see in spectrums beyond the visible, where colors exist that have no names in human language, and each lesson requires payment. The prices start small, so small you barely notice them. To learn this next technique, we need you to lower a barrier the voices explain. There's a protection in your mind, a wall between your surface thoughts and deeper memories. It's limiting your progress. Just relax it. Let us see deeper. We can't teach you properly if we don't fully understand how your mind is structured. It seems reasonable. How can they teach you if they don't understand your mental architecture? You relax the barrier. They don't mention that the barrier was one of the few protections you had left, a final wall between your consciousness and theirs. Now they can reach deeper, touch more, influence thoughts you don't consciously examine. This technique requires significant energy, they say later, more than your body can naturally generate. There's a trick: you can draw energy from around you, from living things nearby, just a little from each. They'll barely notice. Here we'll show you. You learn to pull life force from your surroundings. It feels strange at first, like inhaling, but with your mind instead of your lungs. The potted plant in your hab unit, a rare luxury you'd purchased with a month's saved rations, withers as you practice. Its leaves curl and brown. You feel guilty, but the voices are quick with reassurance. It's just a plant, they say. It has no consciousness, no soul. You're not harming anything that matters, and think of what you're learning. Isn't that worth a little vegetation? They're right, you decide, it's just a plant. Later, you draw from the rats in the walls. Their tiny minds flicker and die as you pull energy through them. You feel a moment of discomfort. They were alive, after all, capable of fear and pain, however simple, but the voices are ready with justification. Vermin, they say dismissively, disease carriers. The hive would exterminate them anyway. You're using resources that would otherwise go to waste. This is efficiency, not cruelty. The logic makes sense. You're not creating suffering, you're just utilizing what's already doomed. Your moral boundaries are shifting. You notice it happening but can't seem to stop it. Things that would have horrified you days ago now seem acceptable, justifiable. Each small compromise makes the next one easier, and your body is changing too. You first notice it when you reach for your water ration and your fingers don't quite respond correctly. There's a delay between intention and action, as if the signals from your brain are taking a longer route than usual to reach your hand. When you look down, you see why. Your fingernails have hardened. They're thicker than they should be, darker, with a texture closer to chitin than keratin. When you press them against the metal wall of your hab unit, they don't flex. They're rigid, almost like claws. Your skin has developed strange sensitivity. Pressure feels different now, more intense, but in ways that don't quite correspond to pain or pleasure. It's like your nerves are processing sensory information through new channels, interpreting physical sensation in ways your brain hasn't evolved to understand. When you run your hand across your scalp, you feel ridges that weren't there before. Subtle protrusions of bone forming along your spine, parallel lines like the beginnings of vertebrae that shouldn't exist. You can feel them when you arch your back, hard points pressing against your skin from the inside. And your reflection, when you risk a glance at the polished metal surface that serves as your mirror, shows eyes that don't look entirely human anymore. The irises have developed rings of color that shift and change, cycling through hues that make your brain misfire when you try to focus on them. What's happening to me? You think, and for the first time since accepting their help, real fear creeps into your mental voice. Evolution, the voices respond calmly. Your body is adapting to accommodate your growing power. The human form was designed by blind evolution for a universe without psychic energy. It's insufficient for what you're becoming. These changes are necessary, beneficial even. But I look wrong. You look different, they correct. Wrong implies some objective standard of correctness. There is no such thing. There's only what serves your purposes and what doesn't. These changes serve your purposes. They make you stronger, more capable. less limited by flesh designed for mediocrity. They have a point. You can feel the increased capability in your modified body. The hardened nails could serve as weapons if needed. The enhanced sensitivity lets you perceive your environment in new ways. The bone ridges along your spine seem to channel psychic energy more efficiently. Besides, the voices add, and now their tone is gentler, almost sympathetic. What was your human body giving you? Decades of pain and exhaustion in a manufactorum. A lifetime of service to an imperium that views you as expendable. You're transcending that now, leaving behind the limitations of your former existence. When they put it that way, the changes seem less horrifying. Maybe you're not being deformed. Maybe you're being improved. The Imperium would call it mutation, corruption, heresy. But the Imperium has given you nothing but suffering. Why should their definitions matter? Exactly, the voices encourage. You're beginning to understand. Their rules, their categories, their moral frameworks, all of it was designed to keep people like you constrained, to prevent you from realizing your full potential. You're breaking free of that now. Doesn't it feel liberating? It does. Terrifying, yes, but also exhilarating. You're becoming something new, something more than human. You just don't realize yet how much more than human means less than yourself. The breakthrough comes during your 7th hour of instruction, when the voices teach you the technique they call the profound feeding. You've been drawing energy from plants and simple animals, they explain, but there are limits to what such simple life forms can provide. Their consciousness is rudimentary. Their life force is weak. To truly master your abilities, you need to draw from something richer, something with depth. You mean people. You feel a spike of alarm, only a little, they assure you quickly. Not enough to harm them, not enough they'd even notice. Think of it like this: every person generates more psychic energy than they use. It radiates off them constantly, wasted. You'd simply be collecting what they're already losing. It costs them nothing and it empowers you enormously. Everyone benefits. You're not sure about this. Drawing life from plants and rats is one thing. People are different, are they? The voices challenge. You've seen inside their minds now. You know what they really are. Most of them barely count as conscious. They're automatons following programming, reacting to stimuli without genuine thought. Look at Citizen 13 Kappa 441, your friend. His mind is so consumed by envy and self-loathing that he barely has room for anything approaching real awareness. Would you really be harming something precious by drawing a fraction of his wasted energy? You reach out and sense your neighbor's consciousness. The voices are right. There's not much there. Just circular patterns of resentment and self-recrimination, thoughts he's had 1,000 times before and will have 1,000 times again. Nothing creative, nothing beautiful, just grinding misery. He's going to die anyway, the voices note. In 30, maybe 40 years if he's lucky. He'll spend that time in the manufactorum, hating himself and everyone around him, and then he'll die unmourned and be replaced by another identical cog in the machine. His existence serves no purpose beyond generating wealth for people who don't know he exists. But you could be something more, something that matters. Isn't that worth a little borrowed energy from someone who's just wasting it anyway? The logic is compelling. When you look at it objectively, disconnected from sentiment and arbitrary moral rules, it makes perfect sense. You're not proposing to kill him, just to use a tiny fraction of the energy he's radiating uselessly into the void. Try it, the voices encourage. We'll guide you, just a little. See how it feels. You reach out with your awareness, following their instruction. You find the threads of psychic energy emanating from your neighbor's consciousness. They're right. It does radiate off him constantly like heat from a body, and you draw on them, just slightly, just a thread. The sensation is indescribable. It's not like drawing from plants or animals. This is rich, complex. It's like tasting real food after a lifetime of nutrient paste. The energy floods through you, warm and vital and intoxicating. Your powers strengthen immediately. The headache you've been nursing since you first opened your mind fades. Your body feels stronger, healthier, more alive than it has in years. Through your connection to his consciousness, you feel him stumble slightly. He feels suddenly tired, though he doesn't know why. He sits down on his sleeping mat, confused by the wave of exhaustion. But he was already tired. Exhaustion is his natural state, so he doesn't think much of it. After a moment, he continues with whatever he was doing. See, the voices say, no harm done, he barely noticed, but you, look at what you've gained, they're right. This changes everything. With access to this kind of energy, you could accomplish things you've only dreamed of. You could truly master your gifts, and it costs almost nothing, just a moment's fatigue for someone who's chronically exhausted anyway. Shall we practice? The voices suggest. There are millions of people in this hive, millions of sources of wasted energy. You could become so much more than you are. And that's when you cross the line from which there's no return. You reach out to another consciousness. This one's a stranger, you've never even seen them, but you can feel them sleeping 3 levels down. You draw a thread of energy, then another from someone else, then another. The sensation is addictive. Each thread strengthens you, clarifies your thoughts, amplifies your powers. You're not hurting anyone. They're barely noticing. It's just efficient resource utilization. You don't see what the voices see. The foundations of your conscience crumbling. The moral framework you've built over a lifetime collapsing one stone at a time. Each rationalization loosening another brick. Each small choice making the next worse choice easier. You're being domesticated, not conquered but convinced. Led step by step down a path that ends in damnation. But each individual step seems so reasonable that you never notice the direction you're walking. In the corners of your HAB unit, shadows are growing deeper. They pool and gather in ways shadows shouldn't, as if darkness itself is becoming somehow more substantial. If you looked at them directly, which you don't because you're too focused on your practice, you might see shapes moving within them. Impossible geometries. Forms that exist in too many dimensions to properly perceive. Reality is beginning to fray around you. The moment of full revelation comes suddenly. You're practicing the feeding technique on your 8th subject when something shifts in your perception. For just an instant, the carefully maintained illusion slips and you see your teachers as they actually are. They're not helpers. They're not benevolent guides. They're predators. The voices that have been coaching you, encouraging you, praising your progress, they're entities of pure malice wearing masks of benevolence. You see them now as they truly exist in the warp. Things made of hunger and violation, concepts given teeth. They don't want to help you master your powers. They want to eat you. They've been pulling you deeper into the warp while simultaneously pulling themselves into material reality, using your consciousness as a bridge between dimensions. You've been teaching them how to possess you. Every lesson, every technique, every lowered barrier, you've been voluntarily destroying your own defenses while calling it education. The realization hits like physical impact. You try to sever the connection, to rebuild the walls, to throw them out of your mind. You can't. They're too deep now, too intertwined with your consciousness. Trying to remove them would be like trying to remove your own thoughts. They're not invading anymore, they're inhabiting, part of your mental architecture now. The corruption has rooted too deeply to be extracted without destroying the host. Oh, Matthias, the voices say, and they're not even pretending to be kind anymore. The mask is off. Did you really think we were here to help you? Did you honestly believe you were special? That you could touch the warp and emerge unchanged? You feel their amusement, ancient and terrible. You're not the first Psyker they've corrupted this way. You won't be the last. This is what they do. This is their nature. They're predators, and you were prey that walked willingly into their jaws because they whispered that you were strong. Your soul was marked the moment you opened wide. They continue. We've been feeding on you since the first lesson. Every technique you learned was actually a way of lowering your defenses. Every moral boundary you relaxed made room for us. You thought you were gaining power, but really you were being seasoned, prepared, made palatable. Get out, you try to say, but your mouth doesn't form the words correctly. Something else is sharing control of your body now. We are out, they respond. We're not inside you anymore, we're part of you. Or rather, you're becoming part of us. The distinction is semantic at this point. You reach desperately for any remaining protection, any last defense. You find nothing. The walls are gone. The barriers are shattered. Your mind is an open wound and they're pouring through it. And the worst part, the part that breaks something fundamental inside you, is the realization that this was always inevitable. From the moment you opened your mind wide, from the instant you let them in, this ending was already written. Every choice you made was one they guided you to make. Every thought you had was one they'd shaped. You weren't making decisions, you were following programming you didn't know existed. You were never free. The illusion of choice was just another tool of corruption. Now, the voices say, and their tone carries satisfaction like the purr of a fed predator, let us show you what you're really going to become. Your body begins to change in earnest. Not subtle restructuring anymore, but wholesale transformation. And this time, there's nothing metaphorical about it. The flesh is reshaping itself into something that was never human, never natural, never meant to exist in a sane universe. The second circle is complete. You've been claimed. Now comes the consumption. You are not alone in your own skull. This isn't metaphor. This isn't psychological fragmentation or some poetic description of internal conflict. There are literally multiple entities sharing the space inside your head now, and they're not guests. They're conquistadors who have claimed territory and planted their flags in the ruins of your identity. There's something you used to call yourself. Matthias Kain, manufactorum worker, 34 standard years old. But that self is dissolving like salt in water. Memories that you know are yours keep getting confused with memories that can't possibly be yours because they happened before you were born, or on worlds you've never visited, or to people who have been dead for centuries. You remember the Great Crusade. You remember the Horus Heresy. You remember conflicts and catastrophes from across 10,000 years of history, except you don't remember them the way historians do. You remember them from the inside, from the perspective of the demons who fed on them. You, the fragment that still thinks of itself as Matthias, try to hold on to your identity. Try to remember who you are, but the memories slip away like sand through fingers. What was your mother's name? You knew it yesterday. It's gone now, replaced by the memory of 1,000 other mothers on 1,000 other worlds, all of them losing children to the black ships or the manufactorums or the endless wars. Time stops making sense. You experience past, present, and future simultaneously. You see the moment 3 hours ago when you first opened your mind wide. You're living through it right now. You witness your own death, which hasn't happened yet but might happen in dozens of different ways depending on choices that haven't been made. You observe a conversation from 2 days in the future between Inquisitors discussing whether to purge your entire Hive sector or just your Hab tower. All of this happens at once, layered on top of each other, and your human brain, designed to experience time as a linear sequence, starts to disintegrate under the weight of non-linear perception. This isn't enlightenment. This is torture. Your body tries to express what you're experiencing, tries to scream. But what comes out isn't a scream. It's a sound that shouldn't be possible for human vocal cords to produce. It's multiple voices speaking in harmony, each one pronouncing words in languages you don't know but understand perfectly. The sound itself has physical weight. It cracks the cheap plaster on your Hab unit walls. The metal frame of your sleeping mat vibrates in resonance, a frequency that makes nerve endings fire in everyone on your level. 3 units down, Citizen 88 Delta 223, the woman whose grief you eased hours ago, wakes screaming. She's hearing the sound you're making, and it's not traveling through air. It's coming from inside her skull, bypassing her ears entirely. The sound carries meaning, and the meaning is driving her mad. Language breaks down completely. Words lose their coherence. You try to think help, but the concept fractures into its component parts. What does help even mean? Aid, assistance, rescue. Each synonym carries different implications, and you're experiencing all of them simultaneously, and none of them mean what you need them to mean because what you need is something language has no word for, or words gain too much meaning. You think door, and suddenly you're perceiving every door that exists or has ever existed. Metaphorical doors, psychological doors, the doors of perception that Blake wrote about, doors between dimensions, the door you've become, the door that's opening wider with every second, And the word door contains all of this now, and your mind is fragmenting under the weight of excessive meaning. The entities inhabiting your consciousness speak through you. Your mouth forms words you don't choose. Your hands gesture in patterns you don't intend. Someone else is wearing your flesh, puppeting it from the inside, and the scariest part is that someone else is also you now. The boundaries have dissolved. Where does Matthias end and the demons begin? The question is meaningless. I becomes a word without referent. Reality itself begins to fail in your presence. The laws of physics, those comforting constants that make the universe predictable and navigable, they're suggestions here, not rules. Gravity inverts in pockets around you. You're still sitting on your sleeping mat, but above you, water from a ruptured pipe is flowing upward, defying gravity, pooling against the ceiling in a sphere of liquid that rotates slowly without anything touching it. Time stutters. For 3 seconds, everyone on your level experiences the same 3 seconds twice. They repeat actions they've already performed, speak words they've already said, and most of them don't even notice because human consciousness isn't equipped to perceive temporal recursion. But a few notice. A few feel the déjà vu so intensely it makes them vomit. Impossible geometries manifest in physical space. The corners of your HAB unit don't meet at right angles anymore. They meet at angles that can't exist in three-dimensional space, angles that hurt to look at because your visual cortex has no framework for processing them. The walls seem to have more sides than they should. The ceiling is simultaneously above you and below you and to your left. Space is folding in ways that Euclidean geometry can't describe. And colors. Oh, the colors. There are colors bleeding through into reality that don't exist in the normal spectrum. They're not mixtures of existing colors. They're fundamentally new colors, ones that human eyes never evolved to see. Looking at them doesn't just confuse your visual processing, it damages it. Several people on your level are bleeding from their eyes now, their optical nerves burned out by attempting to process light that shouldn't exist. The corruption spreads. Everyone within a kilometer radius is being affected. Their dreams, those still capable of sleep, turn into nightmares of uniform horror. They dream of doors opening, of eyes watching from impossible angles, of their own bodies betraying them, flesh rebelling against consciousness. The weak-willed wake screaming. The strong-willed wake silent, but something has broken behind their eyes. Suicide spike. 3 HAB units over. A man you've never met walks calmly to the railing overlooking the 1,000-meter drop to the hive's lower levels. He steps over without hesitation, without fear, with an expression of profound relief. He doesn't want to live in a universe where what he's feeling right now is possible. Violence erupts without reason. On the level below yours, 2 workers who have been friends for 15 years suddenly attack each other with improvised weapons. They're not angry, they're not in conflict. They just suddenly, desperately need to hurt each other and they don't know why. Neither will survive the mutual assault. Lesser demons begin manifesting. They're small at first. Minor entities, barely conscious, drawn to the tier you've created in reality. They appear as distortions in space, places where your eyes refuse to focus, where depth perception fails, where something is definitely there but your brain keeps insisting it's not. Then they become more substantial, more real. The first fully manifested demon appears in the corridor outside your HAB unit. It's small, barely the size of a child, but its shape is wrong in ways that make people's minds recoil. It has too many joints in its limbs. Its skin is the wrong texture, slick and rough simultaneously. Its face, if that cluster of sensory organs can be called a face, arranges itself into new configurations every few seconds, trying out different designs like someone scrolling through options in a menu. A worker returning from shift sees it. Sees the thing that shouldn't exist standing in the corridor, humming a tune that makes his teeth ache. He tries to run. The demon moves faster. It doesn't kill him, not immediately. It plays with him first, bending his limbs into configurations that produce the most interesting sounds of breaking bone. It's curious about human anatomy. It's never had the chance to explore one in physical space before. The cascade effect begins. There are other latent psychers in the area. Not many. Psychic mutation is rare enough that most people never encounter a psyker directly. But in a hive with 12 million inhabitants, rare still means dozens. Most of them have kept their gifts carefully locked away, just like you did. They've built walls. They've maintained control. Your presence is destroying those walls. The psychic corruption you're radiating is like a hammer taken to glass barriers. The latent psychers feel their defenses cracking. The pressure they've been controlling for years suddenly becomes unmanageable. One by one, they begin opening too. Not because they choose to, they're desperately trying not to, but because proximity to you has made remaining closed impossible. Each new psyker who opens becomes another beacon, another tier in reality, another doorway through which entities can pour. The corruption spreads exponentially. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8. In the mathematics of damnation, growth is always geometric. The hive's infrastructure begins failing. Power systems fluctuate wildly as the local reality's physical laws become unreliable. Lights flicker and die. Heating units shut down. The air recyclers, critical in a sealed hive environment, stutter and fail. Carbon dioxide levels begin rising. Oxygen levels begin falling. In another few hours, everyone on affected levels will start suffocating, but that's the least of their problems. Communication networks go dark. The Vox system carries nothing but static now, and if you listen closely to that static, you can hear voices. They're speaking words that don't exist in any human language, and understanding those words is dangerous. 3 communications officers monitoring the system are found catatonic at their posts, blood leaking from their ears, their minds simply gone, overwritten, replaced with something else. And through it all, your fragmented consciousness perceives everything. You experience the terror of the family 3 levels down, barricading their door against something scratching at it from outside. You feel the confusion of the workers who keep forgetting what they're doing mid-action, their minds damaged by proximity to the warp. You witness the manifestation of each new demon, see reality tier to accommodate their emergence into physical space. You're not just causing this anymore, you're part of it. Your consciousness has expanded to encompass the entire catastrophe. You are the corruption. The corruption is you. The distinction has ceased to have meaning. The Arbites finally arrive. You perceive them through a dozen different sets of eyes as they deploy from their precinct. 6 officers in standard-issue carapace armor, carrying shock mauls and stub guns. They're trained for crowd control and criminal suppression. They're hideously, tragically unprepared for what they're walking into. Officer Primary Hadrian Voke leads the team. He's 43 years old, 20 years in service, a good man by the standards of a society that doesn't reward goodness. He's investigating a report of possible psyker activity. He expects to find either a false alarm or, at worst, an untrained latent psyker who needs to be restrained until the black ships can collect them. He's about to die, and you're going to watch it happen through his own eyes. The team enters your hab tower. Immediately, something feels wrong. The air is too cold. The lights are flickering in patterns that almost seem deliberate. The Vox bead in Voke's ear carries static that sounds like whispers. His instincts, honed by 20 years of policing a hive world, scream at him to pull back, call for reinforcements, treat this as a major incident. But procedure says investigate first. Confirm the threat, then escalate. They take the lift to your level. The doors open with a sound like a scream. The corridor beyond is wrong. The geometry doesn't match the building's plans. The hallway should be 30 meters long with hab units on both sides. Instead, it stretches to a vanishing point, and the doors are arranged in patterns that don't follow any logical sequence. Some of the doors are bleeding, just seeping blood from the seal around the frame, pooling on the floor. Emperor's throne, one of the officers whispers. Secure your faith, Voke orders, but his voice shakes. This is Psyker corruption. Stay alert, stay together, watch for. The first demon hits them from a direction they weren't watching because it isn't a direction that should exist. Officer Tertius doesn't even have time to scream. One moment he's standing with his team. The next, he's gone. pulled sideways through space into somewhere else. His Vox bead broadcasts his screaming for exactly 7 seconds before cutting to static. The team opens fire. Stub rounds tear through the air, and some of them hit the demon, and the demon doesn't care. Physical damage means nothing to something that barely has physical form. The bullets pass through sections of its body that aren't entirely solid, or that are solid but not in a way that bullets can harm, or that are solid but only in dimensions the bullets aren't traveling through. Officer Quintus tries a different approach. He's carrying a flamer, standard equipment for riot suppression. Flame purifies, flame destroys. He bathes the demon in burning promethium. The demon ignites. It screams, a sound that shatters the windows in nearby hab units and thrashes. For a moment it looks like the flame might work. Then the demon splits, fissions into 2 smaller entities, each one made partially of fire now, each one burning with flames that don't consume. They're not damaged, they're transformed, improved. The fire hasn't destroyed them, it's given them a new tool. Officer Quintus dies screaming as his own flamer is used against him. The demons understand weapons now. Voke's team breaks. They run. Procedure be damned, protocol be damned. They're not trained for this, not equipped for this, not prepared in any way for things that violate the fundamental laws of nature. They flee toward the lift, and the lift doesn't work anymore because nothing in this tower works the way it's supposed to. They take the stairs. The stairs spiral downward for longer than the building is tall. They descend for 3 minutes and somehow end up on a level above where they started. Space doesn't care about their need to escape. One by one, they die. Officer Secundus falls through a floor that becomes insubstantial beneath him. He drops 3 levels and lands on something that isn't floor, something soft and warm and alive that begins digesting him before he stops screaming. Officer Quartus's armor fuses to her skin. The metal becomes flesh, becomes metal, becomes something in between, and she tears at herself trying to remove it, unable to distinguish anymore between what's armor and what's her. Officer Sextus goes mad, just breaks, sits down in the middle of a corridor and laughs until he's crying, until he's bleeding from his eyes and nose, until his brain shuts down from the sheer cognitive dissonance of trying to process what he's experiencing. Hadrian Voke makes it the furthest. He reaches the ground level, actually makes it outside the building. He sees the street beyond, sees normal citizens walking past unaware of the horror contained in the tower behind him. He almost escapes. Then something wearing Matthias Kain's face appears in the doorway behind him. You're not walking. Walking is too physical, too constrained by pedestrian notions of space and movement. You're simply there, having been elsewhere a moment before, having traversed the distance without passing through the space between. Voke turns to face you. He's a brave man. A faithful servant of the Emperor. He's faced down rioters and cultists and criminal syndicates, but what he sees in the doorway breaks something fundamental in his mind. You're still recognizable as human, mostly, but you're also clearly not human anymore. Your body has become a contradiction, flesh that's also not flesh, matter that's also void, a shape that somehow occupies more space than its physical volume should allow. Your eyes are empty, not blind but empty, like looking through windows into rooms that have nothing inside them, or too much inside them, or things inside them that don't correspond to any concept of inside that makes sense. In the Emperor's name, Voke says, raising his weapon, You don't kill him. The entities inhabiting your flesh don't see the point. Instead, they simply show him. They let him perceive just for an instant what they perceive. They let him see reality as it actually is, the thin membrane between the material universe and the warp, the fragility of existence, the inevitable heat death of all things, the futility of order in the face of entropy. They show him the truth, and the truth ends him more completely than any weapon could. Hadrian Voke's body continues breathing. His heart continues beating, but there's nothing behind his eyes anymore. The person he was has been overwritten. The consciousness that made him Hadrian Voke has been erased, replaced by a truth too large for a human mind to contain. His body wanders back into the building. It will be found 3 days later, still alive, still moving, still human in every biological sense. But there's no one home anymore. The lights are on, but the occupant has left, has been evicted, has ceased to exist in any meaningful sense. And finally, the notifications reach the right people. The Arbeitsteam's Vox transmissions, before they ended, have been logged and flagged. The descriptions of demonic manifestation, impossible geometry, reality corruption. These aren't normal criminal activities. These are keywords that trigger specific protocols, alert systems designed to catch exactly this kind of threat. The information flows upward through layers of bureaucracy, each level escalating the priority. Local Arbeits to regional Arbeits to planetary Arbeits, then to the administratum, then to the specific division that handles threats of this nature, the Ordo Hereticus, witch hunters. An Inquisitor named Cassandra Lear receives the report on her data slate while interrogating a suspected heretic 3 hive cities away. She reads the details with the cold assessment that comes from decades hunting chaos corruption, the description of symptoms, the timeline of escalation, the estimated size of the affected zone. She makes her calculations, runs the numbers, weighs options with the terrible mathematics that keep her awake at nights. Then she gives her orders. Deploy the retinue. Mobilize a contingent of battle sisters from the nearby convent. Bring the soul-bound Psykers, all of them. Quarantine the affected Hab sector. Seal every entrance and exit. No one leaves. Evacuate the adjacent sectors. Prepare for local purge. Not orbital bombardment. Not yet. They're going to try to contain this at the Hab sector level. The decision means millions will die instead of billions. In the twisted arithmetic of the Imperium, this counts as mercy. And through your fragmented, expanded consciousness, you perceive all of this. You know they're coming. You know what they'll do when they arrive. You know that everyone around you, everyone who had the misfortune of living near you when you made your choice, has been condemned. Part of you, the tiny fragment that still remembers being Matthias Kain, wants to stop this. Wants to close the door, collapse the tier, end the manifestation even if it means ending yourself. But you can't. You're not in control anymore. You're just a passenger in a vehicle that's accelerating toward catastrophe, and your hands aren't on the wheel, and even if they were, the wheel isn't connected to anything. The entities wearing your flesh are preparing for the Inquisition's arrival. They're drawing more power through the doorway you've become. They're strengthening their hold on reality. They're expanding the corruption, spreading it to more minds, manifesting more demons, because something vast is trying to push through. Something that's been using you as an anchor point, pulling itself into material reality one piece at a time. The lesser demons are just the vanguard, the advanced scouts. What's really coming is worse. Your physical body, what remains of it, begins the final transformation. Flesh tears, reforms, becomes something else. You're not a person anymore. You're not even a corpse. You're a doorway, a tumor on the skin of reality, a wound through which the warp is bleeding, and something vast and ancient and eternally hungry is pulling itself through that wound. The third circle is complete. Reality has failed. Now comes the manifestation. Her name is Yara Sindri, and she was supposed to be safe. She lived in the Hab unit directly below yours, 29 standard years old. Assembly worker at the same manufactorum complex, different shift. You've passed her in the corridors maybe a dozen times over the years. Once, 3 months ago, she held the lift for you when she saw you running late for work. Such a small kindness in a universe that offers so few. You thanked her. She smiled, a real smile, not the tired grimace most workers wear, and said, "We have to look out for each other, right?" That moment of simple human decency is what you remember most clearly now, in the fragments of consciousness you have left. She was kind. In a hive where kindness costs energy people can't afford to spare, she chose to spend hers on a stranger. Now she's paying the price for living too close to you. Yara wakes at 400 2 hours before her shift begins, because the nightmares won't let her sleep anymore. She's been having them for hours now, dreams of drowning in darkness, of doors opening onto abysses, of her own body betraying her. Each time she jolts awake, her HAB unit seems somehow wrong. The angles don't meet correctly. The shadows pool in corners where shadows shouldn't be able to gather. The air tastes of copper and ozone like the moment before a storm that never breaks. She tries to pray. Yara's not particularly devout. Most workers aren't, when the Imperial Creed offers suffering now in exchange for theoretical rewards after death. But the litany of protection seems appropriate. "The Emperor protects," she whispers, her breath fogging an air that's turned inexplicably cold. "His light shines in the darkness. His servants stand between the faithful and the void." The words feel empty, hollow, like speaking into a void that swallows the sound without acknowledging it. That's when she hears it, a sound from above, from your HAB unit. It's not quite a scream. Screams are human, and this sound has qualities that human vocal cords shouldn't be able to produce. It's layered, harmonic, multiple voices speaking in unison, each one pronouncing words in languages that shouldn't exist. And somehow, despite not knowing these languages, Yara understands what the voices are saying. They're speaking her name, not just her designation, Citizen 42 Theta 889, but her actual name. The one her mother gave her before the Administratum reduced her to a number. The name she's never told anyone in this hive because keeping some small part of yourself private feels like the only rebellion available. "Yara Sindri," the voices from above whisper scream. "Yara Sindri, we see you. We've always seen you. Come to us. Come up. Come through." She should run. Every instinct screams at her to flee, to get as far from this building as possible. But her body doesn't obey. Her legs move, but not toward the door, toward it, toward the stairwell, toward your HAB unit. She's not choosing this. Her body is simply moving, puppeted by an intention that isn't her own. No, she thinks desperately. "No, this is wrong. Something's wrong. Emperor, please help me. Emperor, please." But the Emperor is very far away, and what's pulling her up the stairs is very, very close. She reaches your door. It's open. It shouldn't be. HAB unit doors are supposed to remain sealed during sleep shift. It's regulation. But yours is hanging ajar, and the light spilling from inside is the wrong color. Not the standard issue phosphor glow that every HAB unit receives. This light is sick. Greenish purple, or maybe purple green, or maybe a color that keeps shifting between states without ever settling on one. "Hello," Yara calls out, and her voice sounds small and fragile. "Is someone in there? Do you need help?" The laugh that answers her isn't human. It uses human vocal cords, yours, but it's not a human laugh. It's the sound of something that learned laughter by studying it clinically from the outside and is now attempting to reproduce it without understanding what makes it human. "Help," the voice asks, your voice but wrong. "Oh, Yara, sweet, kind Yara who holds lifts for strangers. You want to help? Then come in. Come see what we've become. Come see what you'll become." She should run, but her body steps through the door. The inside of your HAB unit doesn't match its exterior dimensions. It's too large. The walls extend further than the building structure should allow. The ceiling is impossibly high, disappearing into shadows that move against gravity. And in the center of this impossible space, something is wearing Matthias Kain's body. It's recognizably you. The face is yours. The frame is yours, but you've been hollowed. Your body has become a shell, and what's filling it now is like water filling a glove, taking the shape of the container but fundamentally wrong, fundamentally other. Your skin has a texture like wax, like something that was once solid but has started melting. Your eyes are holes that go back and back and back, further than a skull should have depth, opening onto vistas that Yara's mind refuses to process. And you're not alone. There are things in the HAB unit with you. Lesser demons, small entities that have manifested in your wake. They crawl across the walls in defiance of gravity. They phase in and out of visibility. They watch Yara with too many eyes, and those eyes communicate hunger. "Do you know what you are, Yara?" The thing wearing you asks, and its voice is patient, almost gentle. "You're a pattern, a specific arrangement of matter and energy that thinks it's permanent. That thinks Yara Sindri means something. But patterns can be rearranged." Your hand, the thing's hand, reaches toward her, and Yara finally manages to move on her own. She stumbles backward, trips over her own feet, falls hard on the corridor floor. The impact sends pain lancing through her hip, and the pain is almost welcome because it's real, it's physical, it's something her mind can understand. She tries to crawl away. Her body won't respond correctly. Her limbs feel distant, like they're connected to her consciousness by fraying strings. And then the thing wearing you does something, and Yara feels it happen, a presence pushing into her mind. Not violently, almost tenderly, like a hand caressing the inside of her skull. The invasion has begun. The first thing Yara feels is wrongness. Thoughts that aren't her start appearing in her mind. Intrusive at first, random concepts that don't belong to her thought patterns, then more insistent, then overwhelming. It's like someone dumped a bucket of foreign consciousness into her head, and now it's mixing with her own thoughts, contaminating them, making it impossible to tell which ideas are actually hers. This isn't real, she thinks. I'm dreaming. This is a nightmare. I'll wake up in. You are awake, a voice responds, but it's not coming from outside. It's coming from inside her own mind, using her own internal monologue voice. You've never been more awake. The sleepwalking is over, Yara. Now you see. And she does see. Colors that don't exist flood her vision. Shapes that violate geometry appear at the edges of her perception. She can suddenly feel the people in hab units around her, their sleeping minds pressing against her awareness like bodies in a crowd. She's experiencing what you experienced when you first opened wide, except she didn't choose this. It's being forced on her. A gift she never wanted, delivered as violence. Her sense of self starts blurring. Where does Yara end and everyone else begin? The question becomes harder to answer with each passing second. She feels her neighbor's chronic pain as if it's her own pain. She experiences a child's nightmare 3 units over with the vividness of lived experience. She knows things she shouldn't know, that Citizen 19, Kappa 224 is planning to steal rations, that Overseer Quintusix is dying of a disease he's hiding from the Administratum, that 12 people on this level are contemplating suicide. The boundaries that defined Yara Sindri are dissolving. No, she screams internally. No, I'm me, I'm Yara, I'm. You are matter, the voice corrects. Matter arranged in a pattern labeled Yara, but the label isn't real. The pattern isn't permanent. Everything can be rearranged. Everything can be improved. Her body begins to change. She feels it happening, a restructuring at the cellular level. Bones shifting their density. Muscles reweaving themselves. Skin developing sensitivity to stimuli it was never designed to perceive. The changes don't hurt exactly. They're too profound to register as simple pain. They hurt in the way that waking from a nightmare hurts, the relief of escape mixed with the trauma of what was experienced. Except she's not waking up, she's falling deeper. And then the feeding begins. The entities in your hab unit, the things that have manifested through the tear you've become, they're hungry. Not for flesh, not for blood, for something deeper. Something that makes flesh meaningful in the first place. They're hungry for consciousness itself. Yara feels them reaching into her mind with appendages that aren't physical. They're sorting through her memories like someone sorting through a box of old possessions, examining each one, deciding which to keep and which to discard. But discard doesn't mean leave behind. It means consume, eat, digest, absorb. They take her memory of her mother first. She feels it happening. Feels the memory being extracted from whatever neural pathways held it, being pulled out of her like a tooth being pulled from a jaw. For 30 seconds, she experiences the memory with perfect clarity. Her mother's face, her mother's voice, the smell of the cheap soap she used, the way she used to sing while working despite having no talent for it. All the tiny details that made the memory precious. Then it's gone, not forgotten, erased. The space where the memory lived is now empty, vacant. Yara knows she had a mother. She knows this intellectually, but she can't remember her, can't picture her face, can't hear her voice. The woman who gave birth to her, who raised her, who died in a manufactorum accident when Yara was 16, she's just gone from Yara's consciousness, unmade, and the entities savor the memory. She can feel their satisfaction as they consume it, digest it, incorporate it into whatever passes for their consciousness. They're feeding on her past, on the experiences that made her who she is. They take more. Her memory of her first friend. Gone. The memory of the first time she saw the hive's exterior from an observation port, the strange beauty of it. Gone. The memory of the day she was assigned to her HAB unit, the brief joy of having something that was hers, however small. Gone. Every pleasure, every triumph, every moment of connection or beauty or joy, they're all food, all consumed. The entities don't just want to kill her. They want to unmake her, to disassemble her consciousness piece by piece, consuming each component until there's nothing left that could be called Yara Sindri. And the horror, the true, fundamental horror, is that she remains aware throughout. She feels each part of herself being taken, feels the holes opening in her consciousness where memories used to live, feels her identity fragmenting as the foundations are consumed. She's experiencing her own erasure in real time, fully conscious, unable to stop it or even slow it down. The entities take her emotions next, not the memory of emotions, the capacity for them. They consume her ability to feel joy. Now she knows intellectually what joy is, can remember the word and its definition, but the actual sensation, the lived experience of happiness, is gone. She can't feel it anymore. The neural pathways that produce that sensation have been restructured, repurposed, consumed. They take her fear, her anger, her love, her hope. One by one, the emotions that made her human are extracted and devoured, leaving behind a consciousness that knows it should feel but can't, a mind aware that it's being lobotomized piece by piece. What remains after they've fed isn't death. Death would be mercy. What remains is unbeing. Yara Sindri, the pattern of matter and energy that thought of itself as a person, that had dreams and fears and a small precious store of memories, ceases to exist. Not suddenly, but gradually, like a photograph fading in sunlight until only the outline remains, and then even that is gone. The body survives. The heart keeps beating. The lungs keep breathing. But there's nothing behind the eyes anymore. Nothing that could be called consciousness. Nothing that could be called a soul. The entities have consumed her essence and left behind a shell, a meat puppet, a vehicle without a driver. And the worst part, the part that would horrify her if she had enough consciousness left to be horrified, is what happens next. The shell that used to be Yara Sindri stands up. It moves with the jerky, uncertain motions of something that's not quite sure how human bodies work. It's being puppeted now, operated from the inside by something that's learning human movement by trial and error. The face, her face smiles, but the smile is wrong, too wide, held too long. The expression of something that understands smiling is a thing humans do but doesn't understand why they do it or what it's supposed to communicate. The body speaks, her voice but contaminated, layered with harmonics that shouldn't be present in human speech. We understand now, the thing wearing Yara says. This form is useful, limited but useful. There are others nearby, others who can be improved. And the Yara thing walks out of your HAB unit, past the thing wearing your body into the corridor. It's hunting now, looking for more meat to inhabit, more consciousness to consume, more shells to wear. The corruption doesn't end with one victim, it spreads. Multiply Yara's experience by hundreds. That's what's happening across the affected HAB sector. The entities pouring through the tier you've become aren't satisfied with one victim. They're ravenous. They feed on anyone close enough to touch, and each victim becomes another vector, another source of spreading corruption. Citizen 88 Delta 223, the woman whose grief you eased earlier, encounters a demon in the stairwell. She fights. She's stronger than Yara, more willful, more determined to resist. It doesn't matter. The demon doesn't overpower her, it simply waits. Patient. Inevitable. It shows her what's coming, what's already happened to others, what will happen to her regardless of how fiercely she fights. And finally, broken by hopelessness rather than force, she stops resisting, opens herself to the invasion. Better to surrender than to prolong the torture of futile resistance. The demon consumes her consciousness over the course of 17 minutes. She's aware for 16 of them. The last minute, after her capacity for self-awareness has been devoured, she's technically still alive but no longer conscious of her own existence. The lights are on but no one's home, has never been home. Will never be home again. Your neighbor, Citizen 13 Kappa 441, the one who envied you, whose mind was a nest of bitter resentment, he doesn't even try to resist. When the corruption reaches him, when he feels the entities probing at his consciousness, part of him is almost relieved. His life has been decades of self-loathing and pointless labor. The entities are offering an end to that. Not a good end, but an end. He opens his mind willingly, speeds the process along. He's consumed in under 9 minutes. His body, afterward, is given to something that uses it to feed on others. The cycle accelerates. Some victims survive the initial feeding. They're not whole anymore. They can't be, after having pieces of their consciousness torn out and consumed. But they're not completely hollowed either. They're diminished, reduced. What remains is aware enough to know what's been lost, damaged enough to be unable to do anything about it. They wander the corridors making sounds that might be words, reaching out with hands that can't quite remember how to grasp, looking at the world through eyes that no longer properly process what they see. They're the lucky ones, the ones who'll die when the Inquisition arrives. Quick death by bolter round or flamer burst. It's mercy, even if they're beyond understanding it as such. Others are transformed. The corruption doesn't just feed on them, it changes them. Reshapes them into lesser demonic vessels, meat puppets worn by warp entities too weak to fully manifest on their own. These victims retain fragments of memory, pieces of personality, enough consciousness to know what they were and mourn what they've become, but not enough agency to stop what they're doing. A mother finds herself attacking her own children, unable to stop her body's actions, screaming internally while her hands, no longer under her control, hurt the people she would die to protect. She's aware, fully aware, experiencing every moment of horror, but her body belongs to something else now. A faithful servant of the Emperor, a man who's prayed every day for 40 years, finds himself speaking blasphemies he doesn't believe with a mouth he can't control. The words burn his throat as they emerge. He's aware this is damnation. He's aware he'll be killed for this if he survives, but he can't stop. His tongue belongs to something else. His voice has been stolen. The families, those not directly affected yet, they're experiencing their own horror. A woman watches her husband change before her eyes, watches his expression shift from fear to something else, something other, watches him look at her with eyes that no longer recognize her as a person, only as food. She runs. He follows. Not because he hates her or wants to hurt her. There's no malice in his pursuit, but because he's hungry and she's made of something he needs to consume. She escapes, barricades herself in a neighbor's hab unit, spends hours listening to her husband scratching at the door, speaking in her voice. Somehow he's speaking in her voice now, not his, begging her to open up, promising it won't hurt, promising she'll understand once she lets him in. She doesn't open the door, but she also can't escape. The sector is sealed now. The Inquisition's quarantine protocols are in effect. No one leaves, no one enters. Everyone inside is simply waiting. Waiting for either salvation or death, and at this point the difference isn't clear. Children are affected too. This is what breaks the hardened inquisitorial operatives when they finally arrive, seeing what corruption does to children. A girl, maybe 6 years old, her consciousness partially consumed. She's forgotten her own name but remembers her mother's face, and she searches for her mother through the chaos, calling out with a voice that's half human and half something else. She doesn't understand what's happening to her, doesn't understand why her body feels wrong, why her thoughts are confused, why the adults look at her with expressions of horror and pity. When the Battle Sisters find her later, they'll have to make a choice. The corruption might be reversible at her age. Young minds are more plastic, more adaptable. She might be savable, but might isn't certainty. And the Inquisition doesn't gamble with chaos corruption. She'll die with a bullet through her brain before she understands why the armored woman was pointing that weapon at her. It's mercy. It's murder. It's both. It's neither. In the mathematics of damnation, there are no clean categories. And through it all, you perceive everything. Your consciousness, What fragments remain of Matthias Kain's identity has been stretched across the entire catastrophe. You experience each victim's fear, each moment of consumption, each transformation and dissolution. You're not causing it anymore, you are it. The corruption is you. You are the corruption. The boundary dissolved hours ago. You try to feel guilt, remorse, horror at what you've done. But the emotions are distant now, muffled like sounds heard through thick walls. The entities have been feeding on your emotional capacity too, consuming the parts of you that could feel regret. It's easier this way. Easier not to care. Easier to just observe. To witness the catastrophe you've created with the detachment of someone watching a historical documentary about someone else's crimes. Part of you, a small, screaming part buried deep, knows this numbness is itself a symptom of corruption, knows that your inability to feel appropriate horror is evidence of how far you've fallen. But that part is so small now, so distant, and getting smaller with every passing moment. The entities are almost done with you. They've consumed most of what made you Matthias Kain. Your memories are their memories now. Your emotions are their food. Your body is their anchor point. What remains is barely conscious, a ghost haunting the ruins of your own identity. Soon there won't be enough of you left to maintain even this minimal awareness. You'll dissolve completely into the collective consciousness of the entities inhabiting your flesh. Matthias Kain will cease to exist, even as a fragment. The person you were will be completely and permanently erased. It's almost a relief. You can see it now, because the warp lets you see what you made. The tear you opened isn't just a local wound. It's a rent in the membrane between reality and unreality, and it's bleeding souls. Consciousness pours through you, dozens, hundreds, every mind the entities consumed flowing into the immaterium. They don't die. They persist, stripped of individuality and stitched into the endless churn of feeling and thought that is the warp. They are aware and unmade at once, forever. That is the real damnation. Not extinction, but being scattered into a million selves that each remember their own annihilation for eternity. Yara Sindri is there. So are hundreds more. Each fragment knows you. Matthias Kain was the doorway. If guilt could reach you now, it would obliterate what remains. But guilt has been consumed. You watch their suffering with the cold remove of a fact. Time in the warp doesn't end, and neither does their torture. Somewhere in that infinite tide, something laughs. The chaos gods feel the ripple. Not a direct glance, their attention is galactic and diffuse, but your catastrophe registers on their distributed awareness. They are pleased. Your accident wasn't random. The pressure, the whispers, the careful coaxing over years, all of it was orchestration. Powers older than planets nudged your choices, shaped you until opening wide seemed your own. You think you chose. That's the cruelest joke. Every rationalization, every step toward curiosity was a step they arranged. You were a loaded weapon whose trigger they waited for. You are now a statistic, Incident 80 4662. Your name will be a cautionary file in inquisitorial training, a lesson in why mercy is lethal. You have added to the warp's feast and taught the Imperium to be more ruthless. And elsewhere, always elsewhere, another untrained mind feels the same pressure. The cycle continues because the conditions that make rogue Psykers cannot be eradicated, only managed at obscene cost. 3 kilometers away, Inquisitor Cassandra Lear runs the numbers. She has executed more people than most generals command. She stopped counting when the math ceased to be consolation and became a tool. She does the cold calculation anyway. Affected population, 2-3 million within 12 square kilometers. Manifestations confirmed, 47 and rising. Reality Corruption Index, 7-8, spread geometric, 6 hours before local containment fails. 6 hours before she must recommend exterminatus. Status, she asks without emotion. Quarantine at 97%. 3 breaches sealed. Arbeit's team lost. Battle Sisters inbound. Sanctioned Psykers ready, replies Tech Adept Gaius 9, voice metallic and precise. Cassandra nods. Pieces are moving. She allows a single private sorrow, not for strategy but for what already died. Most of those 2-3 million were innocent. Most of them will be dead because certainty with chaos is binary, purge or planetary collapse. Emperor, forgive me, she whispers, then louder. All units purge protocol Ultima. No survivors, no exceptions. Ave Imperator. The battle sisters arrive like a black wave, ebon chalice sigils, ceramite plates, the practiced choreography of war. Celestian Superior Agatha leads them, 40 years a sister, unshakable faith hardened into an instrument. Her voice carries through vox and armor as a benediction and an order. We face chaos corruption. The Emperor stands with us. We will show the corrupt his mercy, swift, absolute. They breach. The sector is wrong. Silence where there should be hum, cold that eats into the suit systems, light that behaves like a bad dream, shadows too dark, reflections that lie. The first demon appears and is answered by flame. Blessed Prometheum arcs and the thing shrieks in a colorless language that sets sensors spasming. It dissolves, banished back to whatever shore of the immaterium spat it through. But demons do not come alone. They come in waves, from walls, from doors that never were. The sisters respond with bolter and flamer, chainsword and prayer, mechanical, devotional, lethal. Each shot is a short prayer. Each burst of flame is a promise to stop contagion. This is not glory. It is methodical extermination. Then they find people. A woman huddled in a corner mutters prayers that are almost right. Her hands have scratched symbols into the bulkhead that hurt to look at. Please, she begs. I didn't do anything. Agatha's augur reads taint. Not full corruption yet, but touched. Possible incubation. Might is not a currency the Inquisition accepts. Agatha's hand moves with a mercy that is murder. One bolt, clean and final. A life ends in an instant to prevent an unknown apocalypse that could unfold from a single mind. The sisters do this again and again. Choices that are surgical in logic and savage in consequence. They burn families who sheltered a father with the wrong glint in his eyes. They execute the elderly believer because proximity to the rift could mean a delayed, planet-wide catastrophe. Every brief hesitation risks exponential spread. Sister Judith falters once. She is young and still believes there is a threshold where mercy equals salvation. She sees a man kneeling with an aquila in his hands. Sensors are clean. Agatha pauses, looks at Judith, and then at the readings. Certainty the machine requires is a blade. The man dies for the many. Judith's idealism fractures. She will learn the calculus or she will break. The sisters finish the sweep. There is no ceremony, only cold log entries and the hollow sound of flamers hissing out. The final tally is recorded and then filed away like all the others. Bodies counted, coordinates logged, survivors screened and remanded. Cassandra signs the report, her face a map of the same small grief she lets accumulate like ballast. This is mercy in the 41st millennium, becoming the monster so others can keep breathing. It is sanctified by necessity. It is not right. It is necessary. Back in the warp, the souls you fed scream on forever, anatomy of anguish without end. The chaos gods register the addition, note it in their vast accounts, and turn their attention elsewhere. The Imperium learns from your failure and refines its brutality. Somewhere, another child is born with the same pressure behind their eyes. The cycle recalculates, steps forward, repeats. You imagine exploration as nobility. In this universe, curiosity is a contagion. The only humane act is often the inhumane one. The only protection is an atrocity whose calculus no conscience can love. The war is not about triumph but about delay. Survival here is sustained atrocity. And the people who make those choices, Cassandra, Agatha, the sisters, carry the weight so that most may sleep ignorant and alive. You did not free anyone. You did not become something glorious. You became a wound and a lesson. The warp laughs, the Imperium burns, and the cycle goes on. Because in a galaxy where thought can tear reality, there is no other answer. Agatha has made peace with being a monster, or rather, she has accepted that she will never make peace with it, that it will haunt her until the day she dies, and she does it anyway because someone has to. Clear and move, she orders, voice flat. Emotion is a luxury. Later, if she survives, she will feel the weight of these deaths. Now there is only the mission. They push deeper into the contaminated zone, closer to the source, closer to you. The sanctioned Psykers arrive with Inquisitor Lear herself, astropath Kellen, biomancer Yuri, and a diviner who answers only to the designation Omega-7. All soul-bound, all blind from the binding ritual, all seeing in ways that transcend sight. They taste the corruption before they see it. It's vast, Kellen whispers, though his discipline trembles. The tier bigger than it should be. The host isn't one person anymore. They've become a conduit. Something is using them to pull through. Can we close it? Cassandra asks. Not without killing the host, Yuri replies. The Psyker and the tier are one. Sever the connection and you sever the life force. Good, Cassandra says. That was always the plan. Locate the source, direct approach. Omega-7 reads probability like scripture. Most paths end in our deaths. Optimum route, Hab Tower 7, level 42, room 42 Theta-Seven. That's the epicenter. Casualties. 70% squad losses. 40% mission failure without preparation. Acceptable, Cassandra decides. Prepare ritual containment. 30 minutes 20 if you hurry. She gives them 20. They move. Hab Tower 7 is a descent. The building should have 100 levels. Here it has more. Stairs fold back on themselves. Corridors loop into impossible rooms. Reality has become plastic, responsive to psychic pressure instead of physics. Demons and doomed civilians fill the warped halls. Sister Delphine dies making the sign of the Aquila. 2 of Cassandra's acolytes are consumed by the structure itself, their screams absorbed into geometry that was once a wall. Yuri collapses, blood steaming from his eyes. Too much, he gasps. The pressure. You can, Cassandra snaps. We need you for the closing ritual. Pain is temporary. Damnation is eternal on your feet. They reach level 42. The corridor pulses like living tissue. At the end, a door hangs open. Room 42 Theta-Seven, your Hab unit. Through the doorway, they see what you've become. You are not human. From some angles, you seem almost whole. From others, you are a writhing mass of flesh and impossible geometry. Your ribs peel like petals. Where your torso should be is a vista of the warp. Roiling color, screaming faces, things that shred the mind. Demons are pulling themselves through you. You are the rift personified, a wound between realities with a fragment of Matthias Kain still trapped and watching. Cassandra stares for 3 seconds, then to the Psykers. Can we contain it long enough to purify? Kellen nods. Barely. 90 seconds at most. The 3 of us can cast a null zone to disrupt the bridge. Do it. Battle Sisters perimeter. Nothing enters or leaves. When it closes, burn everything. The ritual is terrible and precise. The 3 Psykers link, weaving a net of discipline will blessed by the distant light of the Emperor. They do not have your raw reach. They have training in shackles, the soul binding that stops them from opening wide enough to be eaten. They trade longevity for control. You, the things inside you, fight. Space buckles. Time stutters. The clash is psychic and physical. Those who can perceive it see reality tearing itself as 2 laws struggle for dominion over one chamber. Holding, Kellen gasps, blood streaking his face. It's Emperor's throne, it's strong. Something vast on the other side. How long? Cassandra demands. 60 seconds, maybe less. Agatha, purge on my mark. Agatha steps forward, heavy flamer hissing readiness. She aims at you without a tremor. Whatever you were, she says, voice low, you're damned now. May the Emperor show you the mercy you no longer deserve. For a crystalline moment, the fragment of Matthias recognizes the end. Part of him is grateful. The null zone contracts. Entities scream as they are pulled back, dragged like anchors from material shore by the combined will of 3 burning Psykers. Your corrupted body cannot hold without warp energy. Bone splinters. Impossible organs collapse. You are dying, and in dying you finally become merciful for those you doomed. Now, Cassandra orders. Flame washes over you, blessed promethium that sears both flesh and taint. The agony is beyond pain. A soul-deep unmaking as everything you were and might have been is reduced to ash. Demons howl as their anchor is broken and they are hurled screaming back to the immaterium. The flamer burns for 43 seconds. When it stops, there is ash and scorched metal and the stench of purification. Rift closed, Kellen reports, then collapses. Yuri catches him. Both tremble from the psychic toll. Threat neutralized, Agatha confirms. Her readings are clean. No warp taint remains, just absence where a person once lived. Cassandra allows herself 3 seconds of relief, then orders expansion of the purge. Begin systematic clearance hab unit by hab unit. Priority: anyone showing corruption, anyone in contact with manifested demons, anyone in the exposure window. No exceptions. The cleansing takes 16 hours. 16 hours of burning out corruption, executing the infected and the possibly infected, making impossible calculations under the clock of entropy. The Battle Sisters work until their armor sputters. They do not stop. Every hour of delay risks further spread. Final toll, confirmed dead from initial corruption, 47,000. Executed during clearance, 197 million. Requiring further screening, 283,000. Total, roughly 2-3 million. Entire families ended. Hab towers turned to charred husks. The sector is purified at an appalling cost. Incident 84,662 is logged. The galaxy keeps tally. 3 days later, Cassandra stands in the crater that was your Hab unit and reads the files. Agatha, helmet off, asks softly, "Was it worth it?" "Worth is the wrong metric," Cassandra replies. "It was necessary." 2.3 million people, most innocent. Most, Cassandra agrees. But not all. We could not know which were clean. Maybe and maybe is not good enough when a single corrupted mind can damn a planet. How do you live with that? Agatha asks. You don't, Cassandra says. You carry it. You add it to all the others. You let it weigh on you because forgetting would be worse. And then you do it again because someone has to. Elsewhere, a child named Kessa is born on a forge world. At 4, she hears her mother's worry and answers aloud. Her parents understand the price of that answer. They hide her. They teach her walls. She learns to live in constant suppression, headaches like pressure behind her eyes, a life of careful small deceptions. At 16, she endures. At 47, she dies an unremarkable death. Her secret dies with her. For every Kessa who hides successfully, dozens fail. Some are detected, chained to the black ships. Some slip and open too wide and become cataclysms. There are only paths through damnation. Submit and survive as a tool until the body and mind crumble. Hide and live in fear until a slip becomes a massacre. Or embrace and surrender to the warp's promise of power and become its servant. None are humane. None are fair. None preserve the human values we prize. The Imperium's calculus is cold. Sacrifice a few to save the many, burn the curious to prevent contagion, be monstrous to keep humanity breathing. It is not righteousness, it is survival. In a universe where thoughts have teeth, the smallest mercy is often the cruelest necessity. Someone must be the monster. Someone must choose to burn so others may sleep ignorant and alive. That is the bitter mercy of the 41st millennium. You know where this path ends now. You've walked it. You've seen what transcendence really means in the 41st millennium. The warp doesn't grant empowerment, it devours. Every Psyker who opens their mind too far ends the same way, consumed, unmade, their consciousness screaming forever in the tides of chaos. Being born a Psyker is to be born damned. There are no good options. Surrender to the black ships and spend a lifetime in agony. Hide and risk catastrophic failure. Embrace the gift and guarantee damnation. The only question is how you'll die and how many you'll take with you. Now imagine you are one of the High Lords of Terra. You know the truth. The Imperium cannot exist without Psykers, and yet every untrained one is a potential apocalypse. One moment of weakness, one uncontrolled thought, can open a gate to hell itself. Humanity depends on Psykers even as they threaten its extinction. You have the data. You've seen worlds consumed by compassion, planets that treated Psykers kindly, gave them freedom, hesitated before executing them. Those worlds are gone now, lost to the warp. You've also seen worlds that went the other way, exterminating Psykers entirely. They too perished isolated, blind, defenseless. So you maintain the system as it is, monstrous, cruel, necessary. The black ships still come. The Scholastica Psychana still breaks children to rebuild them into tools. The Astronomicon still burns thousands of souls each day to keep the Imperium's light alive. The machinery of survival grinds on, powered by suffering. Inquisitor Cassandra Lear understands this better than anyone. She has executed innocents, purged populations, and burned children because the numbers demanded it. "I do this," she once confessed, "because letting one corrupted soul live could damn 1,000,000 more." "Does that make it right?" her aide asked. "No," she said, "it makes it necessary." That is the terrible wisdom of the Imperium. Morality is a luxury humanity can't afford. Survival outweighs righteousness. In a universe where thoughts can kill, where demons feed on emotion, mercy is an opening chaos will exploit. The Imperium isn't trying to win, it's trying to endure. And perhaps that endurance itself is victory. Humanity persists in a cosmos that wants it dead. The Emperor's dream is ash, the Imperium a decaying corpse held together by fear and bureaucracy, yet it still moves. Still fights, still protects trillions. Against all odds, consciousness survives. That defiance counts for something. You sitting here in this quiet universe live in a reality where your thoughts are private, your curiosity harmless. You can explore, question, imagine, luxuries fatal in the 41st millennium. Their enlightenment is corruption, curiosity is suicide. In our world, consciousness is freedom. In theirs, it's vulnerability. Remember that the next time you wish for psychic power. In that universe, your mind would be a loaded weapon pointed at everyone you love. Your gift would end in purgation, or worse. Matthias Kain learned that truth too late. He was a manufactorum worker, 34 years old, when he decided to test his potential. Just a little, he thought. Just to see what I'm capable of. The door opened, something came through. 2.3 million people died. His name was erased, replaced with a number. Incident 84,662. His failure became a statistic, a data point used to calculate how much cruelty is necessary next time. That is the calculus of survival. Every tragedy teaches the Imperium to kill faster, purge deeper, hesitate less. Every failure makes the machine of repression more efficient. Even damnation serves a purpose. And somewhere else in the galaxy, another Psyker feels the same pressure Matthias once did. The same whispers, the same temptation to open just a little wider. They don't know his story. They never will. The cycle repeats, humanity's evolution outpacing its ability to contain itself, chaos waiting patiently for another door to open. This is the eternal horror of the Warhammer universe. The mathematics never change. The only variable is how many die each time. The Inquisition will respond. The purges will follow. Humanity will survive another day at terrible cost, because chaos can't be destroyed. It isn't evil in any conventional sense, it's the shadow of consciousness itself. Khorne is rage and violence, the echo of every act of anger. Nurgle is decay and despair, born of every acceptance of mortality. Tzeentch is change and ambition, the fire of every dream. Slaanesh is excess and sensation, the hunger of every joy. They are reflections of thought given form. You cannot kill them without killing the emotions that create them. To destroy chaos would mean destroying consciousness. And so the war goes on forever, not to win, but to delay defeat. That's the truth the Imperium understands. Its cruelty is not madness, but math. Every atrocity, every purge, every sacrifice is part of an impossible equation. How much horror must be endured to keep the human race alive one more generation? It barely works, but it works. And in that there's a kind of dark hope. Humanity continues. Broken, yes, brutalized, diminished, but conscious. Still capable of thought, of fear, of defiance. That persistence, that refusal to die, is the closest thing to victory the Imperium will ever know. So what was Matthias Kain's real sin? Curiosity. The very impulse that defines sentience. The drive to know, to grow, to reach beyond the walls of one's mind. In our universe, that's noble. In his, it's lethal. The Warhammer universe isn't just hostile to life, it's hostile to human values themselves. Every ideal we celebrate, curiosity, progress, enlightenment, is a vector for corruption. Humanity survives there by amputating its own soul, by suppressing thought, forbidding exploration, sanctifying ignorance. It endures by becoming something less than what it was meant to be, because in that reality, to remain human is to die. And so the question lingers, unanswered. If survival requires abandoning everything that makes survival worthwhile, if consciousness must be crippled to prevent its own destruction, is that victory? Or just a slower form of damnation? The Imperium insists that existence, no matter how diminished, is preferable to extinction, that even a flickering ember of consciousness is worth preserving. But in the quiet moments, when even Inquisitors allow themselves to doubt, the question returns. What exactly are we saving? Perhaps the only real victory left is this: the strength to keep the door closed, to live with the pressure, the pain, the curiosity, and still refuse to open wider. Not because ignorance is noble, but because knowledge has teeth. That's the burden of consciousness in the age of the Imperium. That's what happens when a rogue Psyker opens their mind too wide. And that's why sometimes the greatest strength isn't in opening your mind, but in knowing when not to.